Dates are important because they remind us of special occasions in our lives. Birthdays, graduations, wedding anniversaries, retirement parties. Dates are also important because they link us to important events in history. Today, it's September 11th, 2011, the 10th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on the U.S. People around the world are watching the memorial services with a mixture of sadness, compassion, and respect. They mourn the deaths of women and men from so many different countries. They feel compassion for those who lost children, spouses, or parents in the attacks. They feel respect for the courageous individuals who tried to help those in danger, often dying in their attempt. Today, it's also the 6th-month anniversary of the horrific Great East Japan earthquake and destructive tsunami of March 11, 2011. People all over the world bow their heads in sadness and respect as they remember this date. The powerful quake demolished buildings. The gigantic tsunami washed away people, cars, trains, buildings, roads, and towns. March 11, 2011 will always be remembered as a day of death, destruction, and danger, but not a day of despair. The Japanese people know that working together is the key to rebuilding the future. After all, despair is passive, while cooperation is active. When I finally spoke with my dear friends in Sendai, they told me what life was like after the disaster of 3/11/2011. The weather was cold, windy, and wet. They had no heat or hot water. They had to stand in long lines for food. They tried to help elderly or sick neighbors. Despite the difficulties, they did not complain. Instead, they felt lucky compared to the people who had lost their lives, their loved ones, or their homes. March 11, 2011 is a date we can't forget. It teaches us an important lesson. As human beings, we must help each other. Helping others is what gives meaning to our lives. Every spring, visitors from the U.S. and abroad go to Washington, D.C. to see the National Cherry Blossom Festival. Thousands of sakura line the banks of the Potomac River. When the trees are in full bloom, the spectacle is breathtaking. The story of the National Cherry Blossom Festival started over 100 years ago. In 1885, a young American lady named Eliza Ruhama Skidmore visited Japan. Her favorite memory was the extraordinary beauty of the sakura. Upon her return to Washington, she asked the authorities to plant Japanese cherry trees along the banks of the Potomac River. For almost 25 years, nobody paid attention to her proposal to beautify the American capital. Despite the disappointment, Ms. Skidmore did not give up. In April 1909, she wrote the First Lady, Helen Herron Taft, about her sakura project. Having spent time in Japan, Mrs. Taft was enthusiastic. Dr. Jokichi Takamine, the famous Japanese chemist who discovered adrenaline, also supported Ms. Skidmore's project and donated money for the trees. When a shipment of 2,000 cherry trees arrived in the U.S. in 1910, they were diseased and had to be burned. Once again, Dr. Takamine came to the rescue. 2 years later, the city of Tokyo sent a gift of 3,020 sakura to the American capital. On March 27, 1912, the First Lady and the wife of the Japanese ambassador to the U.S. planted 2 cherry trees. In the following years, the other trees were planted. Ms. Skidmore's dream had finally come true. The National Cherry Blossom Festival commemorates this historic planting as a sign of friendship between Japan and the U.S. First organized in 1935, it has grown into a lavish 2-week affair that ends with the coronation of the cherry blossom queen. She wears the magnificent Mikimoto pearl crown with 1,585 pearls set in gold. It was donated in 1957 by the president of Mikimoto Pearl Company. If you have visited the National Cherry Blossom Festival, you must have been impressed. The sakura of Washington are truly special. Trees are a miracle of nature. They offer us shade from the hot sun, protection from the wind and rain, and clean air to refresh our lungs. They produce food for people, animals, and birds. Delicious fruits, tasty nuts, and juicy berries. Trees offer homes for birds and small animals. They also help stop soil erosion. Since ancient times, people have had special respect for trees. In some cultures, trees symbolize immortality and the interconnection among all living things. In others, they are associated with wisdom and knowledge. Trees often represent friendship. In 1912, as we have seen, the Japanese government gave 3,020 sakura trees to strengthen the diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Japan. In 1915, the Americans sent a gift of flowering dogwood trees to Japan. A prominent 19th-century American journalist named Julius Sterling Morton understood that planting trees was a way to protect the world for future generations. In 1872, he organized a very successful tree planting ceremony in the state of Nebraska. That's when 1 million trees were planted in one day. Thanks to Morton's efforts, Arbor Day has become a tradition across the U.S. Each state has its own special Arbor Day. Since 1970, National Arbor Day has been celebrated on the last Sunday of April. Many other countries have their own version of Arbor Day. There is National Tree Planting Ceremony in India, Reforestation Week in Yugoslavia, and Tree Planting Day in Korea. As you know, Greenery Day is one of the Japanese holidays during Golden Week. Perhaps Israel offers the most remarkable success story of tree planting. This tiny nation used to be a land of desert with no natural forests. Since 1901, over 240 million trees have been planted. No wonder it's easy to see the boundaries between Israel and her neighbors. Israel ends where the green stops and the desert begins. We must never forget that trees are a miracle of nature. If only people would remember this message.
Along the Pacific coast of Canada, in the province of British Columbia, there is a special area known as the Great Bear Rainforest. Despite threats from logging and modern development, it remains one of the largest temperate rainforests on the planet and home to a huge variety of plants, birds, and animals. The most mysterious is the white spirit bear. For the people of the First Nations, this rare white bear is a sacred animal that must be protected and respected. In order to understand why, we must look at the First Nations' story about the creation of the world. Once upon a time, according to the legend, the world was white and covered with snow and ice. Then one day, Raven, the sacred bird of creation, changed the world. He made the ice melt away and the earth turn green so that people could live happily in this friendly environment. Raven did not want people to become complacent and forget the misery of the cold white ice age. He decided to talk with Black Bear because bears are the keepers of memories. Together they made an agreement. 1 out of every 10 black bears would be born white to keep the memory of the ice age alive. That is why these rare white animals are called spirit bears. In the beginning of the 20th century, a zoologist named Francis Kermode did extensive research on the spirit bear. He discovered that in the Great Bear Rainforest, some black bears have a recessive gene that produces white or cream-colored cubs. Contrary to popular belief, the white bears are neither albinos nor polar bears, but are instead a subspecies of the American black bear. Unlike other bears, they are generally gentle. For that reason, the First Nations believe that the spirit bear symbolizes peace and harmony. Today, spirit bears are rarer than pandas. Despite the attempt of the government of British Columbia to protect the spirit bears by limiting logging, their population is diminishing. It would be a shame if the spirit bears, along with their message of peace and harmony, disappeared from the planet. Miki Endo, a voice that saved thousands. 1. Special reading passage. The morning of March 11, 2011, seemed like a typical Friday in Japan. The afternoon, however, turned into a national tragedy. At 2:46 p.m., a massive 9.0 earthquake shook the northeastern area of Honshu and triggered a deadly tsunami. The huge, powerful wave, moving at a terrific speed, swept away people, homes, cars, infrastructures, and left in its wake a trail of death and destruction. Thousands of people died in this horrible natural disaster. Fortunately, thousands were saved, thanks to the courage of individuals who risked and sometimes even lost their lives to help others. One of these heroes is Miki Endo. This young woman, recently married, worked in the crisis management department of the city of Minami Sanriku. She had taken this job so that she could be close to her family. Here is her story. When Miki heard that a powerful tsunami was approaching the coast, she immediately went to her post at the city hall. She knew that she had to warn the citizens to go immediately to higher parts of the city before the tsunami arrived. She took her microphone and gave the emergency message. "The tsunami is coming," she announced in an urgent voice. "So get away from the coast fast. Run, please run." She kept on repeating this warning because she wanted to save the people in her hometown. As the killer wave came closer and closer, Miki Endo must have been afraid. The wave was traveling at a furious pace, faster than expected. Worse still, it was much higher than the experts had predicted. There was so little time, and perhaps even no time, to escape. Miki knew that she had to make a dramatic decision. She could try to run to safety, or she could stay at her post. Staying there meant that she would soon be swept away by the tsunami. But before that happened, she could keep on repeating the emergency warning. Doing so could save some lives. At that moment, Miki forgot her fear of death and did her duty. Please try to identify with Miki Endo. Like you, she was a young person who loved life. She must have smiled sweetly as she dreamed about her future, a new home, a family, good friends, and hopefully travel abroad. Unfortunately, these dreams never came true because she sacrificed her life to help others. The story of Miki Endo has traveled far and wide. Her heroic actions have brought tears to people's eyes. She has become the symbol of courage in the face of disaster. Her sacrifice reminds us that we must help each other. When we talk about heroes, we tend to think of the famous or powerful individuals that we read about in history books. More often than not, heroes are everyday people who, through their courage or generous actions, touch the life of others. For heroes, helping friends, family, and strangers is a way of life. Clearly, Miki Endo is a hero. That's why it is impossible to forget her story. This lovely young woman from Minami Sanriku will always be remembered as the voice that saved thousands of lives.